All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Look, if you've ever stared at your bank account at the end of the month and literally thought, wait, where on earth did all my hard-earned cash actually go? Well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to completely demystify the budgeting process. We're breaking down a framework that takes you from just reacting to your expenses to taking total, deliberate control of your money. It's called zero-based budgeting. And by the end of our time together today, you're going to have a clear, actionable roadmap for making your money work specifically for you.
I mean, it's a question practically everyone has asked themselves at some point, right? Why is there never any money left over to save? We all know the sheer frustration of this cycle. You get paid, you dutifully pay your regular bills, maybe spend a little freely on the weekend, and you kind of just cross your fingers hoping there's going to be a nice chunk left over to throw into savings. But then, bam! An unexpected expense pops up, or those little everyday purchases just quietly add up, and suddenly those leftovers you were counting on, completely eaten up.
So we've got a very clear plan for this explainer to solve that exact problem. We're hitting 1, the leftover trap, 2, every dollar's job, 3, the 3-step process, 4, Jordan's ledger, 5, the variable curveball, and 6, a final checkpoint. Because just like the budget we're about to build, every single minute we spend here has a specific job to do.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the leftover trap. Let's look at the fundamental flaw in how most of us manage our money.
Notice the absolutely stark contrast between these two formulas. Up top, you've got the traditional budget setup. Income minus expenses equals savings. This right here is that leftover trap we just talked about. You pay bills, you spend on whatever comes up, and whatever manages to miraculously survive to the end of the month becomes your savings. The problem with that? Well, something is almost always waiting to consume what would have been left. But look at the bottom formula. The zero-based budget totally flips the script. Income minus expenses minus savings minus giving equals 0. You are deciding exactly how much to save first. It becomes a fixed priority, and your flexible spending simply fills in around those priorities.
So to properly execute that bottom formula, we got to move to Section 2, every dollar's job. We really need a complete paradigm shift in how we look at our bank accounts.
Okay, here's the formal definition we're working from. Zero-based budgeting is a method where every single dollar of your income is assigned to a specific category. And yes, that includes your spending, your saving, and your giving. The math absolutely must work out so that the total of all these categories equals your total income, bringing the balance to exactly 0. And hey, it's incredibly important to understand this point. Having a zero-based budget does not mean your bank account is at 0 and you're suddenly broke. Not at all. It simply means you've given every single dollar a deliberate assignment. You are the one in total control.
The whole concept is captured perfectly in this one simple phrase. Every dollar has a job. Savings is a job. Giving is a job. Padding that emergency fund? That is a highly important job. If you decide that $200 is going into a savings account this month, that money is assigned. It's employed. It is no longer just leftover cash. Because honestly, if a dollar isn't assigned a specific job, it wanders off. It gets spent mindlessly on stuff you probably won't even remember buying by next Tuesday.
Let's keep moving to Section 3, the 3-step process. Let's see how all this builds into an actionable blueprint you can literally use today.
So how do we actually pull this off? Well, it boils down to 3 clear steps. Step 1, list your total monthly income. And hey, make sure you use your net pay. We're talking about what actually hits your checking account after taxes and deductions, not your gross salary. Include your paychecks, side hustles, any predictable money rolling in. Step 2, list all your categories and assign dollar amounts. You got to prioritize here. Cover your fixed expenses first, rent, car payment, that sort of thing. Then handle your variable needs like groceries and gas, then your savings goals, and finally your wants, like eating out. Step 3, adjust the math until the balance is exactly 0. Add up all those assigned amounts. If you're under your income, assign that leftover money to a savings goal immediately. If you're over, well, you're going to have to trim a category until it fits perfectly.
All right, let's make this concrete. Moving on to Section 4, Jordan's ledger. This is a brilliant illustration of how the math actually works when we apply it to a real-world case study.
Okay, so here we have Jordan. Jordan brings home exactly $1,800 a month in net pay. After working through Step 2, Jordan has assigned $1,600 to basic living expenses. That covers the rent, the groceries, utilities, basically the essentials. So, Jordan takes the income of $1,800, subtracts the $1,600 in expenses, and checks the balance.
And that simple math leaves Jordan with $200. Now, under a traditional budget, Jordan might just smile, leave that $200 sitting in checking, and just kind of hope it's still there at the end of the month to transfer to savings. But as we've already learned, that is the trap. That is $200 of unassigned, unemployed money. It has absolutely no job. And that means it is incredibly vulnerable to impulse buys or, an extra dinner out. We absolutely want to avoid leaving this number just floating around.
So to reach exactly zero, Jordan has to give that $200 a job. Jordan assigns $150 specifically to an emergency fund, and the remaining $50 is assigned to a future car savings category. Boom! Now Jordan's updated total is $1,800 in income minus $1,800 in total assigned categories, which equals exactly $0. Every single dollar now has a job. And this proves that saving is an active, deliberate choice, not just a leftover accident. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Okay, this is great if you have a steady salary, but my paychecks are all over the place. Well, that brings us to Section 5, the variable curveball. What exactly do you do if you're a freelancer, an hourly worker, or maybe you have a seasonal job?
Variable income can definitely be tricky, I hear you. But zero-based budgeting still applies beautifully if you just follow the rules right here. First off, always base your budget on your lowest expected income for the month. Look back, find your most conservative baseline from recent months, and use that. It totally keeps you from overcommitting. Second, when a better month inevitably arrives, immediately assign those extra dollars to a savings goal or an extra debt payment. Whatever you do, do not just let that extra cash float in your checking account. Third, if you happen to earn less than that baseline, you're going to need to actively reduce your flexible categories, like entertainment, to cover the shortfall. And the final, absolutely crucial rule here, never budget based on the income you are merely hoping for. Planning based on a best-case scenario, that is just a one-way ticket to overspending when an average month rolls around.
All right, we've covered the traps, the steps, and the curveballs. Let's head into Section 6, our final checkpoint, to really lock this knowledge in.
Before we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with this scenario to solve for yourself. Imagine your net income is $1,200. Your fixed expenses are $450 for rent, $45 for your phone, and $40 for the internet. And, importantly, you are treating your savings like a fixed bill, so your goal is $150. If you lock in those fixed costs and pay that savings goal first, exactly how much intentional control do you actually have over the rest of your money for groceries, transportation, and everything else? Run those numbers for yourself, because once you assign every single dollar its own specific job, you stop wondering where your money went and you finally start telling it exactly where to go. So, are you ready to give your dollars a job?